Bat Force Radio.
Bat Force Radio is rated M for mature, or should that be immature?
Hey guys, Dustin Wynn.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Paul Dini.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
And you're listening to Bat Force Radio.
You're listening to Bat Force Radio.
This is Tom King. I write Batman Bitch, and this is Bat Force Radio.
All right, welcome to Bat Force Radio, the Batman/DC podcast with no limits, bringing you a comic book stack episode for the date of March 4th, 2020. I got Robin Cross up in Canada.
Good evening.
And the main event for this little mini stack episode is the highly anticipated Batman 90, Batman number issue 90 from the Rebirth era. James Tynion writer, Jorge Jimenez as the artist, and I believe it's pronounced Tomeu Morey, or Morey as on the colors, who really brings this issue to life. So let me tell you, man, this has been a highly anticipated book. For me alone, it's because of the artwork. I didn't even read it the first time I got the file. I just looked at all the pages, all the images.
Yeah, Jorge's a great addition to having on the Batman stable.
Yeah, this guy is a true comic book artist because he's doing things like cityscapes, action, motion, the whole shebang when you think about cool, fun comic books. And the colorist, between Jorge and the colorist, it's like, oh, it's so good. I mean, the first panel in the book is Deathstroke on this crotch rocking motorcycle. All of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I think this is a breath of fresh air for a lot of people who were quite unhappy with Tom King's run as well. Everyone has their opinion, but I think this is a little different to what Tom King was doing. This feels more like what you would expect from a Batman comic book. Right.
Yeah, James was setting out to do something specifically different just to be a change of pace. So on the last episode, when we were talking Batman 89, I read some of James Tynion's newsletter where he was talking about the creation of Punchline. Yeah. So I wanted to refer back to that just to touch on a bit where he described to Jorge what he wanted to do in the series. And then he also... I want to get also into what he told Jorge about the designer, because the designer really comes to the forefront of the story in this issue.
Right. Is this the first appearance of the designer?
No, he did show up briefly. Didn't he show up in 89 or 88 or something? He showed up a little while ago.
Oh, yeah,
sure.
But
this is the first one.
So this guy's new, though.
This is the first. Yeah. This is the first time that he's in the forefront of the story. But what James had said in that newsletter about what he was going for, he said, the two words I keep using to describe this run is action horror. We're doing big scary vehicles, a bloody Joker, and letting the villains be as scary as they can be, but all in a kind of over-the-top fun way.
That sounds good to me. That's the kind of stuff I like. And
action horror is a good lane for Batman to be in.
As long as there's detective work as well somewhere in there, then we're good. But even the cover of this book, Batman and Catwoman on top of that building, it's almost like a nod to Jim Lee's work on All-Star Batman and Robin. Remember that image with Batman and Robin? It was almost like they were standing on the bat signal, or I don't know, the way the city was just so illuminated from the bottom up, and it just reminded me of that. I don't know. I'm just such a fan of this guy's artwork that I'm really happy with this book is all.
I am too. Yeah. Since designer comes up in this, I also want to cover. I'm just going to pick a couple parts of what he told Jorge. He explained basically ideas he had for the look of the designer and said, take these ideas and just show me what you come up with. So a little bit of what he said was, if they did a Metal Gear Solid Final Fantasy Silent Hill crossover game and the villain of that game was meant to be the actual honest-to-God devil, that's the kind of character I'm looking to create here. The feel should be that the designer is walking out of a different kind of comic book into Batman, a different aesthetic world entirely. There should be something eerie about the Joker, the Penguin existing in the same space as this character. Something inherently wrong about it. He is a different level of evil.
Well, that says a lot because Tynion's mentor is Scott Snyder, and Scott Snyder is one of the kings of creating Batman villains. Like he's created some of the best Batman villains in mythology at this point, and obviously Tynion's his pupil, and those are heavy words from where he's coming from, so that's kind of cool. And yeah, we'll see. I think it all depends on what the motive or how the designer goes about whatever is gonna unfold.
We find out in this issue that the whole thing that Batman was going through with the assassins is a part of the puzzle of this overall designer story.
Slade is trying to contact someone, but Harley Quinn intercepts it.
Yeah, so this is picking up from the last issue where between Batman himself and then also Harley and Selina, they had taken out all of the assassins with the exception of Deathstroke. He was still out there roaming around. And right at the end of that, they had unleashed that flock of drone bats to fly off after Deathstroke. So picking up here, we see that Harley has been put in control of those with what looks like a PS4 remote.
I love it. First of all, Jorge, minus the stupid dye in her hair, I hate when they do that. Minus that, Jorge draws an amazing Harley with her gamer headphones on and the PS4 controller.
And then a proper gamer chair.
Gamer chair, and she's actually playing it out as if she's playing a video game, but shooting these rubber pellets or missiles at Deathstroke. And it's just, even the profile he drew of her, oh, that's the way. I love how Jorge Jimenez is saving Harley Quinn. how James Tynion is saving Harley Quinn.
Yeah, Jorge is capturing that sadistic, evil side of Harley and having her be strong,
smart, and
not be, not relying on goofy faces and whatnot, like silliness to
that's how you do Harley. And clever lines too when she's talking about betting if she can shut that other real eye that Deathstroke has. Yeah, that's when you do Harley right. And this is a continuity book, mind you. So throw her back in a little jester outfit. I don't even mind that outfit too much. Just lose the stupid hair dye. I don't know what it is about that. It looks so fucking Hot Topic-ish. But I remember in the preview files when we saw this image of her with the PlayStation controller, and I was like, damn, that looks so cool. Like, there was so much hype just around the preview images of this book that it definitely got me excited. But then we cut over to Catwoman and Batman staring over the city, and Selina starts to tell Bruce about how this all went down with the designer and how the designer approached Penguin, Riddler, Joker, and her.
Legendary criminal that all the criminals, the entire underworld knows about, and they speak about him as this almost mythical character. They've all received invitations. So Selina explains that she had found an invitation on her pillow with a dock number, a date and a time, etc. So she shows up and finds that also Riddler, Joker, and Penguin had received these invitations. So they're on this dock, and a boat pulls up, piloted by some paranormal sort of gentleman.
It reminds me of the Mortal Kombat movie in the 90s, where to get to the island, I think it was Shang Tsung's island, they have to get on this eerie boat, and they're going through fog, and it's like, ooh.
They're both kind of similar to the ferryman,
Yeah.
Taking you across the river Styx. And he says, climb aboard the Styx.
It's fun though. I like that kind of stuff.
And the house you asked is called Tartarus House.
Or I don't know if you ever seen the Garfield Halloween special, but they have to take a boat over to get to the creepy house where there's like a treasure. I guess this kind of plot's been used quite a bit, but it's still fun. The design of the what do you think of the design of the designer?
It's a really different design. If you read the entire explanation of what James wanted to go for in this, you can see all of the points that he wanted, that he wanted him to be ornate and complicated and have, all these different aspects on it, like some of the aspects to be sort of military, and some, you can see all of the different, all these different things that are thrown into a pot for his appearance.
Yeah, I see a lot of different elements in it. It's like to me, it's like it almost doesn't know what it wants to do. It's all over the place. It looks like he has like Mexican war medals on and bling on and a mummy face with a Daredevil D on his face and a big poofy white fur collar with camouflage fatigue pants and a sword. And I'm like, I don't know what
I feel like all of the different aspects of his getup could be a sign of, how much history he has. He has different pieces of different parts of his life, because none of these parts really go together.
Selena was going to the history about Batman and Robin facing the common criminal. There was a new type of supervillain. It was a new type of crime fighter, and it's almost like things got elevated or evolved.
What we skipped over a bit here was during this flashback scene, we get Jorge doing the old purple suit Catwoman, as well as Batman and Robin in the old style suits too.
The Hush style, right? That's Hush. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I guess the designer goes into his past about fighting a really competent detective who's really dark and silhouetted in the flashback. And I'm starting to wonder, there's like some swashbuckling going on or sword fighting. I don't know. This is probably a super long shot, but this character that he's talking about, this detective, has like, it's almost like he's describing the Shadow. You know what I mean?
Definitely could be something like that.
And the word he uses at one point to describe something, or the word shadow was used in his flashback of describing everything that went down. I mean, it's a super long shot, but I think it's interesting how this detective figure that the designer was going against nothing was revealed about him or disclosed about him. So I don't know.
The page before it shows that flashback to him fighting his enemy. They're fighting on a train, they're fighting on a blimp. The page before that, I just want to touch on that big splash page of Batman and Catwoman on a rooftop. That is insane. I've been talking about this page for like 2 weeks, but I couldn't post it anywhere because it wasn't in, the preview images that we were allowed to post. But man, if this should have been the cover. 2, if this isn't available as a print sometime soon, I don't know what to do.
I know Bats looks like he has blue balls in that shot. It's a good shot of Selena's new, quote unquote, new Catwoman outfit where she has exposed armpits or whatever.
Yeah, ventilation.
But it looks good. Ventilation. Good looking. I mean, with the colors and Jorge's art. I mean, yeah, that would make a great print. Hopefully he'll do that. I think Jorge's been around here and there over the years. I remember when he did that one shot with the Calendar Man for Tom King, and I was like, wow, this is so... That was him, right? Jimenez, yeah. And I think he might start blowing up now that he's doing some work on the main Batman run.
Yeah, and well, he just came off the Justice League book with Scott Snyder as well. He was doing some great stuff there. He's been all over the place. But yeah, definitely there isn't anything really bigger than the main Batman book.
You know what it's like when you're on a Batman book, right? Mainly the Batman book titled Batman, because everyone is always reading, buying, tweeting about it. It's always under a microscope. So
we have the designer explaining to the rogues that he invited over that in his continuing struggles with the hero figure who always thwarted him, how he had to develop himself. Like, he locked himself in a room for, I think it was a year. And he basically evolved himself several steps by just planning and planning and planning and doing nothing else but that, so that he could eventually be just steps ahead of this hero that he was failing to defeat. And this is basically what he wanted to do with them. So he was going to take them one by one into this room and basically teach them why they always failed, why Batman was always one step ahead. And the plan was that he was going to find out their greatest idea and give them those extra steps ahead that were going to make them be able to pull this off.
And also maybe with some financial resources, I believe.
Yeah, Absolutely, yeah, because they couldn't do it alone. So it's interesting so Selena's talking about after she comes out of her meeting, Penguin and Riddler had already been in for theirs. So she talks about how they're chatting with each other about their plans while Joker's in the room with the designer for hours. So she describes that Penguin talks about a shell game of assassins that would end with him in the mayor's office. Well, that's what we just saw end in the previous issue. You know, those assassins had been stopped. So this was Penguin's idea being used against him because of how we see things will transpire in this issue. And also she mentions how Riddler described a kind of technological labyrinth that would cripple law enforcement in the city. So that sounds pretty much like James Tynion is referencing Scott Snyder's Zero Year.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right.
So that was Riddler attempting to use that plan, but he didn't have, because of what happens in this issue, he didn't have the resources and the assistance of the designer to help him pull it off, so Batman was able to stop him.
And then when the Joker went in, things got really interesting. We were in there for hours and hours, and it sounds like the designer got to look into the abyss of Joker's mind and how evil it was in terms of his future plans for what he would do with the city. Pretty much like apocalyptic when it's talking about the Joker. So the designer comes storming out and is like, kill them all. And I guess
as they all entered, he requested that they all surrender their weapons so they could begin this meeting.
Yeah.
And after the designer comes out and says, kill them all, that's when we find out that Joker forgot to give one of his guns back. So that's a quick appearance for the designer as we see Joker just plugs him in the back of the head and then finishes taking out his smoke-faced goons.
Which is kind of cool because at one point I was like, is this guy really going to tell the Joker how to do his job? I don't know how I feel about that. Like the others, okay, but...
we have to consider also that this was, as Selena is describing in this, so Joker at this point was just a crime boss in clown makeup, you know? So
right, yeah.
This was in his early days, because when she was talking to Bruce about how the world was here, she said it wasn't at the beginning, but it was close.
Yeah.
So they were all sort of, you know, just in their early forms. So yeah, Joker wasn't anywhere near as bad as he was going to get yet, but the designer must have been able to see in him, and you know, from hearing his plans, just how sick he was going to be.
Torched the house, and I guess they buried the designer in Potter's Field.
Yeah. And it's interesting here where Selena describes after they took care of this. So they're just watching the city as this house burns. And she's talking about Joker, the effect that this had on him. She says something changed in him that night. His eyes, they were different than they had ever been before. And then you see that look. And that look, I think it was Tony Daniel issue, that one remember when Joker was wearing like that big apron kind of thing, and he had the slicked back hair, and he had like this exact look on his face. That look on his face where Joker's at like his prime sickness and most deranged. That's that look.
Yeah, he looks like less like a human and more like some kind of evil entity. Just, hey, they did the Joker right. I'm telling you, for a second, I was like, you know, it's the Joker, man. And then they cut back to Selena and Bruce on the rooftop, and Bruce already knew that part of the plan with the designer and Selena for her to achieve her goal would have to do with getting Bruce Wayne's money in Wayne Enterprises and Manor of Billions. Apparently the designer still has the plans, and Bruce says he's about to lose everything. So this is a damn good page turner, man. Yeah,
the story moves really fast. Each time I read through it, like you get to the end, you're like, oh, that's the last page already. It's a solid issue. I've been saying that. It's unfortunate, like when there's hype, like there's been because of the appearance of Punchline and everyone going crazy about that, the hype can really outshine the quality of the issue in question.
Yeah.
And you know, you end up with, it comes to a point where everyone just thinks this is all just about the hype, but there's a lot more than hype to this story.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Punchline wasn't even in this, and all of a sudden I'm ready to read on, because when you get good storytelling in this kind of artwork, it's just, like I said, just as good as it gets. Make sure you pick up that Batman number 90 at your local comic shop.
Hopefully you've got it on your file, because this one's already gone to second print as well.
Why did this one sell out so quick? Was there any reason?
There's just all that buzz on the story now. Everybody's just buying up every issue now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what else was on the burner this week? You were talking about
Strange Adventures number 1 by Tom King, Mitch Gerads, Doc Shaner.
What'd you think of this one?
I think this whole series is going to be something to watch out for, just like all the stuff that these guys have been doing. You know, all before this was Tom King and Mitch Gerads on Mr. Miracle. If any of you haven't read that, you're missing out. It won Eisner Awards, and just go. And you don't have to know anything about the character going in. The story will tell you everything you need to know. So with Mr. Miracle, if you don't know anything about Mr. Miracle and the New Gods, all the Jack Kirby stuff, the Fourth World, it doesn't matter. Just you can dive right in, and it teaches you everything you need to know as you go along. And Strange Adventures is the same thing. I'm not the biggest expert on Adam Strange, but this book tells you everything that you need to know about him and his story.
Is this Black Label?
Yes, this is Black Label.
Okay, because I'm looking at the file, and there's some hanky-panky going on.
Yeah. So, this is a 12-issue series, and basically the story is Adam Strange is back on Earth after being on another world fighting in a war. You know, he's sort of this superhero, war hero kind of thing, and now he's back on Earth, and he has written a book talking about his story. So you see him on this book tour, on shows, in stores signing books. The funnest thing right at the beginning of this, if you've ever met Tom King at a con, you will recognize something right at the beginning of this book, because the first panel, you have Adam Strange sitting at a table in a bookstore doing a signing, and he's got his hand out to shake someone's hand, and he's saying, "Hi, I'm Adam. Can I sign a book for you?" And if you've met Tom King or watched Tom at his table for any length of time, people will be waiting, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, to get a book signed by Tom King. And when it's their turn, they walk up to the table. Tom reaches his hand out to shake their hand, says, "Hi, I'm Tom. Can I sign a book for you?" So it's cool seeing that exactly Tom King right in the beginning of this book. The story goes back and forth. So we have jumps between these scenes on Earth and these scenes of him being off-world fighting in this war. So all of the on-Earth shots, all the Earth pages are drawn by Mitch Gerads, and all of the other pages are done by Doc Shaner.
Yeah. Shout out to Doc. We had Doc on, right?
Yeah.
We had
he
all
was on
three
a while
on
back.
one
Mitch
point.
has been on, yeah.
Yeah. I love the colors on this book. It's so fun. Is it going to be in the big format, the big Black Label format?
I think I can't tell from the dimensions on the digital copy if it is coming out at the Premium Plus format or not. Prestige Plus, sorry, format. I'm not certain.
Okay.
But it does look like it's that form. It looks like it's that shape.
Yeah, look at this. This is great colors. This looks like a really fun classic comic book character book. He keeps saying, "Hi, I'm Adam. Can I sign your book?"
Hey, it's so fun because it's exactly Tom.
Oh, it's kind of graphic too in some things. Yeah, this is
absolutely.
It's funny because it's like a fun, slice of life, wholesome comic book character, and then you have these images of violence or sex or whatever. So
and they divide up the art duties perfectly, because you have these pages of Adam Strange in a war fighting these enemies, and it's Doc Shaner doing those, and his art style is that classic, timeless, almost Darwin Cook, old-timey, wholesome comic book look. And then all of the Earth pages where things can be a little more gritty and dirty, it's Mitch doing those pages, and that's perfect for his style.
Well, there's a little guest appearance in this book too that I won't spoil, but very cool. Oh, this is a Black Label, so I think the The page count is 32.
Yes,
It's a big
that's
32.
that's with the cover, so I think it's 30 pages.
Yeah, 30
'Cause
page
it's two
bastard.
covers in the file.
Yeah, so you get
big
you get your money's worth. And yeah, Strange Adventures. I dig this. This is cool that they. I think this is a little passion project that they had going on. You know, Mitch and Tom. So this looks really
This
exciting.
is sort of this is almost like a trilogy now of books that Tom has done like this. Vision being the first, then Mr. Miracle, and this.
Yeah, but Vision is Marvel.
But he did before Mr. Miracle was announced. I was talking to Tom about it, and he was describing it as being his artistic follow-up to Vision.
Right.
But what these all have in common, what Tom does with these characters, and he asks for characters like what they did with Mr. Miracle was, they had asked him what he wants to do next, and he said, "Give me a character that I can do anything I want with."
Yeah.
You know, like it doesn't matter. You'll let me have free reign to do with the character what I want. So at the time, I believe this was Dan DiDio that listed him like 4 or 5 characters. Said, okay, you can have him, you can have him, you can have him, you can have Mr. Miracle. He said, Mr. Miracle, I'm going to do him. So this Vision was like that, Mr. Miracle was that, and this is seeming to be in the same vein where he takes a superhero but tells a story of the human side of them. So we get this point where the action story, the typical comic story is sort of the backdrop. It's the background story.
Yeah.
And the forefront story is the human element of them, the person behind the superhero, and it's getting into the person story.
Tom wants characters that you could do anything with. That's definitely not Batman.
Yeah.
That must have been tougher when he did Batman. But when is that Batman Catwoman run hitting with Tom King and Claremont?
I don't think they've given a date yet, unless something got announced over the weekend at C2E2. I don't think there's a firm date on it yet.
It's supposed to have started already. Where's that? Where's Three Jokers? What the fuck is going on?
They had said a while back, so originally the Batman Catwoman story was going to flip back and forth between a couple artists. So Clayman was going to do, I think, half of it or maybe more, and other people were going to come on. I think Mitch Gerads was one of them. But then as they were plotting out the story and getting the details down, they started to see, well, wait a minute, this is going to be something special. Like we're coming up with more than we imagined here. And they decided, well, this needs to be just the two of us doing this. So it's not other artists coming and doing it. So it's all going to be written by Tom King, and it's all going to be drawn by Clay and colored by Tomeu Morey. So it's, rather than having artists swing in on different issues, it's going to be one dedicated thing, just like Mr. Miracle was with Tom and Mitch. Batman Catwoman is going to be just Tom and Clay. And we should get a date on Three Jokers anytime now. That's, the rumblings keep coming up. It's already, Jay knows when it's coming out. Like Jay knows the release dates. He's just not allowed to say it yet. But once it is announced, you can expect that we will be speaking to Jay promptly.
Have you been reading the Lois Lane title?
I haven't read, I don't think I've read anything past the first issue, but I do want to catch up on. That's probably one that I'm going to read the whole thing once it ends, because that started off really well. The other thing coming out this week that will offset that for some of us, if you're into this kind of thing, there's that big deluxe hardcover edition of Sean Murphy's Batman White Knight.
Oh, that came out of nowhere.
That's in stores this week too, yeah. And yeah, that's I believe a $50 cover price.
Yeah, that's it's like the Dark Knight Returns all over again. You just keep buying the same book over and over. But but that's a nice format for that artwork. Yeah,
and I think that's, I haven't checked, but I assume that's probably some Molush work.
Yeah, I think it is Molush. Everybody, if you're on Instagram, tag at Molush, MOLOOSH, and tell her to get on Bat Force Radio, because we want to talk to her about all her amazing book jacket design for the DC hardcovers. Yeah, this week we got a new Flash issue, Superman Villains #1, Mystery in Space 75, The Dreaming 19, Strange Adventures #1, Daphne Byrne #3, Justice League Odyssey 19, Lois Lane 9, Justice League 42, and don't forget to pick up Batman number 90. Shout out to DC. That'll do it for the Stack episode this week, March 4th. Go pick up your comics. Subscribe to Bat Force over on YouTube or Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, wherever. We're all over the place. So until next time, friends, Molush.
Hey Gotham dwellers, make sure to stop everything right now and subscribe to Bat Force Radio. We can be found on iTunes and SoundCloud. Don't miss out. Guaranteed to satisfy all of your Batman and DC needs.